So, a while ago, probably like 6, 7 years ago, when I was an active bar raiser, one of the fun stuff that we went through during interview training. So they used to train us that this is how an interview is taken. And one of the things that they would tell us is keep like a scratch pad with you and jot down signals. But there is no need to double mark a signal. So if you ask the candidate something, they fumbled. You understand that they don't know this. You don't need to go and grill them even further on something that they don't know. What you can instead do is move on, get a different data signal. The idea was there to kind of say that, all interviews are data gathering exercises, right? They're not judgment exercises. And this stuck with me a lot. That is also one of the philosophies with which we wanted to kind of, build this podcast, because the idea is we want to see people in action. We want to kind of hear stories about how they are evolving. Right now, AI is kind of making us go through a renaissance, if you like it or not. And all of us are still kind of trying to figure out what is the right way to approach, building companies, building products, everything. So this idea was to kind of see that fundamentally, the role of software engineering, the role of people in the role of labor is changing, right? Because AI is doing a lot of work for us, or will do a lot of work for us. So then what are we hiring humans for? Like, what are we paying them for? How do we value humans? How do we decide what is the pay for a 1-year experienced person, a 3-year experienced, 10-year experienced person? All of these standards that were pretty much set, right? Are now all getting rewritten. And the idea is to kind of talk to operators who are going through this as they build companies, as they build products, and see what they are experiencing in this regard. Make sense? All right. Today, we have somebody very special to start the podcast with. We have Vedang Manerikar with us. Vedang is somebody who is hands-on as a developer, and he probably likes to wear the developer skin a lot more than an engineering leader skin. But probably also because of that, I think Vedang is an excellent engineering leader. It's one of those things, where if the leadership is given to you, you find out that you do it well. And Vedang is one of those guys. So welcome to the podcast. Vedang, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do now? What has been your trajectory?
What a kind introduction. How do I do a better job than that? I am a distributed systems engineer, web developer. My career has been built on building high scale websites. Essentially, I was working in one company for a long time. That company went from a startup. I was the 6th employee. It went from a startup to a significantly big company. And we just so happened to be in a space which was very intense in terms of traffic. We were adopted by gaming companies, and that meant we saw like 100,000 requests per second, 150,000 requests per second at peak. So that kind of just forces you into learning. Like you either learn how to deal with that kind of scale or you don't survive. So that's where I kind of picked up my chops. That's still the kind of engineer that I am, in the sense that that's my expertise. We got into this AI game early on. At that company where I grew from software engineer to an engineering leader, and I was head of the backend team. At that company, I also had a bunch of friends. I spent 12 years there, and we all wanted to start our own company. So we decided to start in 2022. We started an edtech company. It was a stupid idea in hindsight. But what happened was that one of the biggest challenges in edtech is content generation. And we started in September 22, and ChatGPT was released in November 22. And so we were very early on adopters of ChatGPT, simply because we needed to solve a problem of generating content. And LLMs were great for that problem. And we were very heavily into it from the beginning. The EdTech product died because EdTech is not a tech problem. EdTech is an operations and sales problem. And we suck at that. When that died, we essentially were in a funk about what to do. And we reached out to our network. And they said, hey, you guys seem to have like a decent knowledge about these things. The new world, the LLM world, Gen AI world, agentic system. Why don't you come and help us build these things? So we formed a IT services company, and that's what we do. We focus on agentic systems. The company is called Unravel.Tech. That is what we have been doing since middle of 24.
You mentioned we. Who's we? Tell us a little bit about.
So it's me and 3 of my best friends. So it's Kiran Kulkarni, Rajwalit Bhopale, Kapil Reddy, and me, Vedang Manerikar. We were owners of different functions inside HelpShift. So essentially, we are a team of builders. Our main skill set is building, and what we lack is sales, marketing, operations, and that's the thing that we have been kind of learning. So in the IT services space, it's easy to sell the thing that we know best, which is how to build, but it's still a function of selling, and we are getting better at that day by day. That's essentially what we are doing.
Awesome. So a bunch of folks, friends building together,
Yes.
and it sounds like a great setup in general. There is also very interesting because like I've known you for a while now, and I think you guys were early into this idea that later on even YC adopted, that the next billion-dollar company might even be like a services company, right? Services companies are what you want to build now with AI. Tell us a little bit about, like, has that been true for you? Have you seen that to be true? Like, what are the benefits of the AI tailwinds that you've seen structurally as a services company for yourself versus, say, a product company?
So why not build a product company? Let's start with that question. Right now, the fact that we are four builders sitting out of Pune, and not even Bangalore in India, right? So we are all nearing our 40s now, and that means that we don't have the energy, and we are not in the epicenter of things to see what is happening in high tech. Let's say,
Yeah.
which means that anything that we come up with is going to get killed if we stay in the space of high tech. And you can see that's already been happening. Like Anthropic every day releases a product category killer. So the idea is that you cannot build companies on top of unstable technology. So eventually this technology will stabilize, at which point in time you will be able to build product companies. Right now, things are changing.
That's
So
true.
then what you want is you want to build something which is either in a niche, something like you're doing, like you're taking a space and you're attacking that space, or you do services. So the benefit of services is that I am staying on the cutting edge of what is possible with LLMs, because I have to
Hmm.
learn every day, because the kind of requests that I get change every day, and that way is a nicer way to like know what is happening in the world, because I'm not in the valley. Like if I were in the valley, maybe I would be much more connected to upcoming ideas.
Yeah.
Here I'm basically in a position of reacting rather than acting. So in a position of reacting, it kind of makes sense because now with services, I can try out different things. So essentially, I
Very
have a
interesting.
bunch of clients and a bunch of different ideas for them in this agentic system space. So I get to learn, I get to see what works in which area, I get to form an opinion. So that is very valuable right now. So at the moment, I think services companies have that edge. I don't know how long that will stay. Eventually, product companies will again have the edge in this particular space, in the agentic system space. Now, if you come to the question of like billion-dollar company being a services company, in theory, it's accurate. You can take a look at like other companies who are in our space who are claiming to head in that direction, right? Like there's Emergent, there's Real
Yeah.
Fast. Like if you take again a problem which a lot of people are facing and they are willing to pay some money for solving that problem and maintaining that problem. From like a pure IT services point of view, there is still the unsolved problem of how do you charge for it. So I
Yeah.
still want to keep a small company. I would love, like my ideal thing would be we have a small company where everybody is working on lots of projects, but that's not going to happen simply because firstly, we still charge for people. Nobody is happy with me if I say I'll charge you for this amazing AI automation that I've built, which I have, but
Got
they
it.
don't want to pay for that. That's number one. Number two, just like my expectations as an engineering person have changed about how much I can achieve in a single day, the client's expectations have also changed. And in fact, that has changed much more drastically than my own expectations have changed. So if I think I'm getting like a 2x boost, the client expects like a 20x boost or a 200x boost in
I'm
productivity,
sure.
which
I'm
means
sure.
that this one person working on multiple projects is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen because the client is also becoming that much more demanding. So in the end, it's just a
True.
standard IT services thing.
Very interesting. So there's a bunch of like overlapping themes that really are interesting for you specifically because, as you said, you charge per hour. So the organization size has a direct impact on the total revenue that your company will ever generate, right? Because
Correct.
there is an upper bound to it. And so, like, ties into my next set of things I was going to ask, that how has hiring or organization size been in the last 1 year? Like, have you been hiring? Have you shrunk? Because what I'm kind of curious to see is not just the headcount per se, but I think I also care about the amount of value per person that has been generating because of adoption of AI. Has that also been accelerating? Has that plateaued now?
So we have grown from 4 people, just the founders, in 2024 to around 8 people in 2025 to 16 people today. And we don't have a plan to grow beyond 20. But right now, we don't have a concrete action plan to make sure that that actually works. So we have a few things going on, like our maintenance contracts are heavily AI based. So we'll offer a very cheap maintenance contract and it will all be done by AI tools. But But from a purely like a client needs this problem solved and wants two people deployed on site to solve it. From purely that perspective, we don't know how we are going to get out of charging on a per seat basis.
Tell us a little bit about like your how's your team's AI adoption like? Like, what are the kind of tools, technologies that like? What are your philosophies that you've maybe don't like? You don't have to go through like the entire spectrum, but like, what are some good things that you've discovered that you've built for yourself, and what are some things that you tried but they didn't work really well?
Good things. So firstly, let's talk about AI adoption. Essentially, our principle is that everybody gets a Claude Code plan, $100 max plan. Our goal is to get
Nice.
to the $200 max plan by the end of this year for every single
Mm.
employee. So that essentially unblocks them from doing whatever it is that they want to do. That's the goal. There's no hard and fast rule that it has to be Claude Code. Just so happens that Claude Code has maximum adoption within the team. I personally, for example, use Codex, and in the recording, if you see later, you will see that I use PyCoding agent, which is my day-to-day coding.
As fair enough.
So it's up to you how you want to spend those $100. But if you don't have a preference, then we will give you a max plan, the Cloud Code max plan. So in that sense, everybody is doing it. And so from a philosophy point of view, essentially we have a bunch of like internal learnings that we have been doing about how AI tools should be used. The very main points would be that you should not ask AI to do things that you don't know how to do. And so you should ask AI to do the things that you know how to do. If you don't know how to do it, you should learn how to do it and then get the AI to do it rather than the other way around, getting the AI to do it and then learning how to do it.
Got
And that is the kind of thing that I mean when I say teaching. So right now there's a huge question in front of everyone. Why even hire juniors, right? So why do you need juniors? Just have seniors. And the obvious answer is that if you don't hire juniors, where will the seniors come from 5 years down the line? So now if I hire a junior person and I have to describe the task to them entirely, then I might as well describe the task to an agent. So I would actually get much more done that way. So there are a few things that implies. One is that it implies a sense of agency and passion that the junior needs to have. That's number one. And number two, it implies the importance of teaching in the organization. It was always a full-time job. It was always something that was there. And good organizations have always spent a lot of effort on teaching it. But I think in today's world, it's even more explicitly important. Some examples of it would be that in this week, whatever interesting things I have done, can I pick like one or two of them and teach them to other people? And those interesting things need not be, they could be workflows, but they could also be that, hey, here is a nice way in which you sort an index. Here is a nice way
Got it.
in which you create a database schema. And here is why this database schema is better than this other alternative or something like
Yeah.
that. Right. So if you do that, if you explicitly do that task of teaching people, then juniors will scale up. This is always how juniors have scaled up. It's just that today you don't see the point of doing it because why do it if I can get the agent?
Yeah. So there's some two really interesting points here, but I want to tug on to this line that you said. Never ask an agent to do something you don't know how to do.
Exactly.
This seems like a very nice rubric to understand what is a human supposed to do and what is an agent supposed to do. It kind of puts the human in front of the agent, like in some ways, where the agent is now bound by the human, artificially so, because the agent may be able to do something far higher in the hands of a senior developer, but in the hands of a junior developer, the junior has to learn first and then kind of play catch up. What are like the good things why this rubric exists, and why should like a junior developer or a senior developer or anybody, why should they just not go berserk, right? Like just go write things and go beyond things that you don't understand. Why not do that?
So it was always, I mean, see, my point of view, my philosophy behind this is engineering practices have always been important and they have always remained the same. They have not changed. AI is just a tool. I have a bunch of tools that I'm an expert at, right? I take pride in being good with using my editor. I take pride in being good using my CLI. Similarly, I should take pride in being good using my LLM model, right? My agent. That is one thing. The other thing is just knowing what you're doing when you're doing things, right? So even if you have that, like, even if you use an agent, even if you give everything to an agent, like just solve this. If you just take a dump of some notes and put it in to the agent and say solve it, you can have dramatically different outcomes if you know what you're doing. So somebody who knows how, say, operating systems work or how networking works or how databases work can craft a much richer prompt than somebody who doesn't know all of these things for the same problem. And that is where that difference is. So it was always the case that the junior could solve something, even if it was a simple problem. The senior could do it in a better way. Could say that, no, rewrite these functions, make them smaller, structure the module in this way, keep like a short,
True.
small interface and have like a deep module. All these like standard engineering practices have always been true. They have all just been amplified in AI. I have a nice chart that I made called Programming Wisdom. I'll send you a link maybe.
For
This is a
sure.
poster. Which
We'll
is a
include it
poster
in
that
the show notes.
yes, absolutely. It's a poster that I kind of like print out and put and give everybody, right? Like you keep this near you. It has a bunch of rules from the greats. And this we are talking about like people in 70s and 80s and Doug McIlroy and
Nice.
ESR and bunch of people. And if you look at those rules, all of those rules still make sense. Today you can just give all of those rules to your agent and say do things this way, but they still matter.
Yeah.
So for example, I think Doug McIlroy said long ago that, or ESR said, I don't know, that build tools, temporary tools to do the work, to help you in the work that you're doing, even if you have to throw the tool away, right? So if you're building like some database schema, build a tool which can visualize the database schema and show you the relationships between them. If you're doing some sort of HTML reporting, build a tool which can let you navigate through it visually and see that all of the work has been done
Nice.
properly, rerun it, things like that, right? So this used to be good practice earlier, but it used to be difficult to do because it involved a lot of effort. Now it's just something you should do because you can do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
in a sense, that's the idea that you still need to get better at the field. There are still a bunch of things in the field that are worth learning. And the more you learn it, the more productive you will be with AI as a tool. And that's the goal.
Awesome. Awesome. This is actually really nice. We'll definitely include your to send me the link. We'll include
Yeah,
them
yeah,
in the
absolutely.
show notes. And I've mentioned this very nicely, and I wanted to kind of double down on some of these things. You've worked for smaller product companies that have then turned large. You've built organizations in the past as well. And now you're building like a very intentional, as you said, you want to be under 20, but you've also grown a lot. Like you've at least doubled every year in the last couple of years. In both of your past life and in Unravel.Tech, what has changed in your hiring approach? In that you kind of just, if you want to compare what used to happen and what are you doing now, how, like, tell us a little bit more about how has that been different?
Surprisingly, not much has changed actually. I mean, that's not true. Lots of things have changed, but they changed because of the market rather than because of anything else. And what we used to do at that time was we used to give a task and give a week's time to do that task. And
Oh,
then
wow.
at the end of the week, you have to submit the code and only then you would get selected, like if the code was good. Now, was our interview policy. Essentially, get people to do things, hard things, given enough time on their own. Like do whatever, like read a book, Google it, Stack Overflow it, do whatever you want, right? But solve it and submit the code. Even work when the market was what it was at that time. In a market where software engineers are very heavily chased, this doesn't work because
Yeah.
nobody's interested in saying, "Oh, I'll week-long interview process." And I will do
Yes.
something on my own time and I will submit it to you and then you will tell me whether you're selected or not. No, people are not interested in that.
True.
Right. So then we had to change that. So then we like changed the assignment. Would give them like a broken box, virtual box,
Okay.
and we would ask them to debug it. And they would have 4 hours to do it and things like that. Right. So you sit down, you are given a box, you have 4 hours, find out as many problems as you can, fix them all, explain what you did, things like that.
Very interesting.
The fundamental idea being that you have to let the person do things with the tools that they're comfortable in on their own time as much as possible. And you have to see what they're doing. And ideally, you have to like sit together and work for a bit. So later we change this process to say, okay, you take, like today, the process that we follow is you take one part of the assignment. There are 2 parts of this assignment. You take one part of it, do it on your own time, come prepared. Then, when you have given me your code ahead of time, I will set it up on my machine. You will set it up on your machine. We will pair program and solve the second part of the
I
assignment,
see.
which I will tell you on the spot.
Makes sense.
So
Very
then
interesting.
that kind of shows you how much the person knows, right? Like,
Yeah.
was the entire thing AI generated? Were they able to do anything about it? Did they read the code? What their personal style of working is? You can see it in a pair programming session.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
essentially, that's the idea.
So like a pair programming session, but still like has a little bit of filter in the beginning to make sure that you are spending your time on like candidates who are worth spending their times on. Sounds like a really good way to make sure that you have the, the right set of people, and also like a very in-depth. Pair programming is one of the fun ways to do this. I still remember one of my best interviews that I ever had for that Stripe, and this was in San Francisco. And so I sat down and they gave me a large PC, and they said that, what's your favorite, IDE? Back then, this was all non-AI. So I sprung up IDE. They said, okay, here's a code base, like you can open it. And then we said like, okay, so for 30 minutes, we're just gonna write tests together.
Yeah.
Right. And that was me reading the code, understanding what it was doing, then coming up with tests to write together. And in no way did it feel like, I was put on the spot. right? It was always like a collaborative exercise to see how far do I go. And again, in this also, right, a really good interviewer becomes like a fly on the wall, but also like not absent. Like if they have questions, you can still answer them. That was like a very interesting piece to me, which I think I also see in your process. But pretty cool. Just to double click on this, when you do pair program, right, especially in today's environment, what do you look for? Like, what are some signals? What are some observations that you rely on to identify a great talent?
I don't know about great talent. I don't think interviews are a good way to identify great talent or speaking.
Fair enough.
But you look for like what kind of expertise does this person have on their own environment, right? And that tells a lot because you are a programmer. You are going to be spending time in front of your editor, terminal, computer. Most of your 80% of your time is that. Right? And what do you do there? Like, how do you use it? Do you use it well? How do you navigate a code base? How fast are you when you're like wanting to find something? Do you care about the tools? Like, what tools have you installed? Do you know what they do, or do you don't know what they like? Do you just use the defaults, or do you change the defaults? Why do you just use the defaults, or why do you change the defaults? Like, there's nothing wrong in using the defaults, right? But do you have an opinion about it? So these kind of things, they come out in discussion. If the person is pair programming and they are saying something out loud about why they are doing something, then maybe you can ask them a question. Hey, why this? Why not that?
Yeah.
See what they know, right? Or if they say, okay, let me open up this file, and then they open up a finder and try to find things in it and drag it, drop it into the editor, then that kind of is like, why? Like, you have the editor, just search inside. Like, why do you not have that, right? Why do you not have that setup? And there may be a good reason for it, but like there needs to be the person needs to be able to defend their choices.
Makes sense.
Your environment, then why do you not change your environment, right? So even that, like, I know somebody who doesn't care about colors in the code editor. And that person is like, I think that's a distraction. That person says these colors are all a distraction. I know what I'm doing. I know exactly which line I'm looking at. And that helps me move faster. The fact that, my way of looking at structure is different from your way of looking at structure. You need all these colors. I just get confused by these colors. And that's fair. But can you articulate it? Is the question.
Yes, makes sense. Is it a conscious choice? And that makes sense.
Yes.
That makes sense. In your experiences, what has been like a really good, for example, really good hiring story for you, or a learning experience for you that thought this is how somebody would have played out, but that's not how it ended up playing out, or maybe you didn't even imagine it to play out this way, but it played out so well. What are some good or bad hiring stories for you?
Okay, I'll give you a good and a bad hiring story. Good hiring story is not mine, actually. It's my boss's. My boss had an irrational belief in people and their ability to do things. And he saw, like, even today, I think his greatest strength was spotting talent more than anything else. Like, he was a great engineering mind. And there was this guy who I worked with. His name is Mayanjan. When he joined, he didn't know anything. He didn't come from a traditional CS background. He was actually a community person, in the sense that he used to attend everything that happened in Pune in Linux. He's genuinely enthusiastic. He was doing this before networking was a thing, right? So my boss hired him. He didn't know anything. I think for 3 months, all the senior people in the team were telling my boss to let this guy go. He tried different things. He came as a developer, was working on things, and he genuinely didn't know. And he was struggling, but he was also working tremendously hard in that time. Like, he wasn't not doing anything. He was working very, very hard. And something flipped around the 3-month mark, and that guy just became one of the best people I've worked with, right?
Nice.
And this is not like, this is neither a one-off. This is nor like indicative of like it always working, right? My boss did this with a bunch of people where he took risks on people who did not have traditional backgrounds, and they did really well. And there were also many cases where they didn't work out, where we fired people too late, right? Like, where we kept them, we fired them later. So this is not a 100% track record strategy, but there is something to be said for people who genuinely want to be in the room. So they will struggle maybe, but they need to have that, no, I'm okay with the struggle. I just want to be here. That's one story. The other bad story is for like my first firing as a manager, which happened long ago. The guy was much senior to me, and he was truly a good engineer, very, very good engineer, extremely abrasive, Nobody wanted to work with this guy.
I see.
And the only reason that he was there was because he was truly very smart, and he knew what he was doing. And there are a bunch of things he said which I remember even today. They have stayed with me because they are valuable things. But he was just like a complete asshole. Nobody wanted to work with him. And the final straw, I think, was one of my like really, really good hires. This guy was like from he joined our company from Nepal. When he was 19 years old. He had not done any engineering. He came straight after his 12th standard, I think. Very soft-spoken guy. That guy called me up in the middle of the night where there was an on-call incident, and he said, "You come to the office now or I'm quitting," right? So the
Fair
next day
enough.
we fired the senior guy. But essentially,
I see.
later I had a long discussion with everybody in the team. I actually got thank you emails from people who were not even in my team. But they said, "Thank you for firing. What took you so long?" And
I can imagine.
he was my first fire
I
sale.
can imagine. Very interesting. Very interesting stories. Thank you so much. I think this has been a great conversation. I do have like a lot of other things to kind of speak about, but I think at this point in time we will kind of overshoot our time. But at some point later in the future, I'd love to have you back and kind of compare notes on how
Absolutely.
things have gone forward and how not. Loads of takeaways from how you are approaching building and hiring people who build. The fact that you fundamentally like give access to $100 plans, and like the fact where you've been very clear even before AI came into the place. You've been very clear about the fact that your job is to watch people work and like give them the environment that they need, like watch them finish something complicated, and that has been your litmus test for a while, even before AI became a thing. And that like really resonates with us, not just as a product, but also like as my own experience of hiring, looking at people, interviewing people. Superb principles to work off of. Thank you so much, Vedang.
Thank
I want to
you.
kind of like, you took a test before you
Yeah.
got onto this call. And
Yeah.
I wonder if we can like, let me see if we have the results of that available, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll see what has happened and what has not.
Sure. Sure.
Let
Let me
me
have a look. Your
hold a minute and I'll.
viewers should know that I took the test from 1:30 to 2, and we were meeting at 2 p.m. So I was 2 minutes late to this, to this podcast because I was
Fair
taking
enough.
the test.
Fair enough. No, but I'm extremely grateful for actually trying it out. Like, thank you for doing that. I'm going to like, let's see if I can open up. I think it seems like we have finished your, okay. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. So you, unsurprisingly, you have scored really high,
That's
but
good.
let me,
It is not unsurprising to me, but that's good.
it could also be like a little bit of tuning that we need to do on our side,
Yes.
I think. But let me kind of share my screen and we'll kind of see a few things that I think are super interesting to highlight how awesome. So this was Vedang Manerikar's assessment. You can see
All
he
right.
spent like
Great.
30 minutes trying to solve this. And he's gotten a perfect score from our side at least. Here's the problem that Vedang was given. Basically, it was like a Python and Redis kind of a problem. Said that, hey, we have like, we have a bunch of APIs, but they kind of lack a resilient caching strategy, right? And Vedang had to kind of go ahead and implement serve commonly requested product details from a fast Redis cache. And this was Vedang's attempt. And you can kind of see that he was really good with his prompt quality, planning with AI, storming with AI. And these are the tools that he ended up using, a bunch of tools, right? So Vedant used Docker, well,
Yes.
lots of CLI tools. You can see Redis CLI, not a visual tool, but a Redis CLI. And of course, Uvicon to probably run the entire system. And this was Vedang's attempt that we've kind of highlighted over here. You can kind of see skills. Vedang is Redis 5 on 5, then 5 out of 5. There's no gaps and improvements because basically Vedang was really good with uses async, def, and await for asynchronous operations. Like by default, he was using async and has a very good sense of, for example, cache invalidation was already built in. Usage of AI, right? Like 5 out of 5, right? Detailed, high quality prompts for planning and scaffolding, right? But we should kind of highlight this. The fact that you have a 5 out of 5 score means that you also don't have over reliance on AI. Like if you, for example, just copy paste and ask the AI to solve this, then you would have gotten rated lower. But in this case, you're kind of meaningfully engaging with AI generated output, reviewing plans, code, debugging, right? Kind of also have a verification process that was thorough, right? And then the problem solving approach itself, right? Like systematically planning the pieces and including rigorous verification that you can see over here, right? So, and you can kind of see over here, if I just close this out a little bit, you kind of see that he's using, is this Claude Code, Vedant?
No, this is Pi. This is the Pi coding
Oh, this
agent.
is Pi. This is the Pi coding agent. Yeah, so you can kind of see him writing down detailed planning prompts and then kind of looking at reviewing and refined AI plan, correcting like malformed outputs.
You actually you gave me the Redis IP and username. So I used that.
Yes. Okay, you were
Yeah.
managed to use it. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I,
great.
I basically told my agent do both. Like said, bring up the Docker file locally so that you can run tests locally. And then after you have
Very
made the
nice.
changes, connect to the droplet and run everything there and see what happens.
Very nice. Very cool. But
Yeah.
to give our listeners a sense of what he was given, this was the code base that Vedang was given to work with. Right? So he already had like a DigitalOcean
Yes.
droplet where Redis was deployed. And he could, for example, go through some of these starter pieces of code and go and
Yeah.
enhance them. But yeah, so this is really nice. Pretty cool overall to see, Vedang, that you've done really well on some of these things. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
good for me
for
also.
attending it. I will share
Uh,
this with you also and take a look at, in general, the product and how you feel
yes,
for it.
I'll do it.
Any other things that you'd like to share with our listeners about building with AI, about hiring, especially working with people in like, for humans to do more with AI?
Yeah. So what I would like to share with the engineers who are watching this is that if you feel that you are behind on using AI right now, don't worry because everybody is behind on using AI. Essentially, what is happening is that what I was doing 2-3 months ago is completely outdated now. So
Yeah.
if I were to start from scratch today, I would still be able to catch up with anyone else because their workflows are useless. Like you have to keep changing your workflow and updating your workflow with whatever is the latest possible thing. So don't feel like you have like uh, you're behind the curve or anything of that sort. Start today, you're going to catch up really fast, and all you have to do is just like have that mental dexterity to throw away your um, previous assumptions about
Hmm.
what was possible and what was not possible, and then just go all in to say
Nice.
that okay, let's find out what is the new normal and
Yeah.
invest in that.
Very cool. Very cool. Like be ready to change your opinions, learn fast. Awesome. Thank you so much, Vedang. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for
Excellent.
spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Um, awesome.